if there is one at that time. Okay? So the first thing we need to make sure of is that the 20-day cycle has already formed its peak. Okay? Then the next thing that Hurst recommended that you do is that you make sure that price has entered the mid-channel pause. Now, the mid-channel pause is something that might take me a little too much time to explain to you, but I'm going to demonstrate it to you very simply by taking a look at a previous cycle, and I can do it very easily with this cycle over here. Okay, so I have zoomed in here on a 40-day cycle. Okay, I hope you can all see it. Now I'm going to draw the shape of that 40-day cycle just below price. Okay, and so I'm replicating what's happening in price over there, and I'm replicating it below there. Okay, that's a rather detailed picture of what the 40-day cycle actually looks like. Okay, now you know that of course the 40-day cycle has a shorter cycle, which is the 20-day cycle, then an even shorter cycle, the 10-day cycle, and a much shorter cycle, the 5-day cycle. Okay, and all the way down to 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, what is the mid-channel pause? The mid-channel pause for a cycle occurs on the way up, in other words here, and on the way down. It is very simply the trough and subsequent peak that is caused by the cycle 2 degrees shorter than the cycle that you're trading. 2 degrees shorter. What does that mean? The cycle we're trading is the 40-day cycle. Okay, there it is, 40-day cycle. 2 degrees shorter, we can just look at our diamonds. 2 degrees shorter is, of course, our 10-day cycle. So let me circle the 10-day cycle troughs. The mid-channel pause is very simply the distance from the peak to the trough, in other words, over there, coming in to that 10-day cycle trough on the way up, and the distance from the trough, and the trough here looks as if that occurred over a weekend, the trough to the peak on the way down. Okay, that is the mid-channel pause. What does it mean? Well, we're trading the 40-day cycle. On the way up, price moves up from the trough towards the peak. Okay, very simple. But it does not move up in a straight line. It pauses along the way. When it pauses to form the 10-day cycle trough, that is the mid-channel pause on the way up. Similarly, when the 40-day cycle moves down, okay, it doesn't move down in a straight line. It'd be great if it did, because we could trade it very easily. It doesn't. It pauses on the way down to form the troughs and the peaks of all the shorter cycles. Okay? The mid-channel pause is the pause that is formed after price forms a trough of the 10-day cycle. It bounces up again. So, let me wrap up today's trade chat by coming back to a consideration of whether we would be interested in entering a short trade right now. Okay, first of all, the answer is no, because we're coming into a trough of the 80-day cycle. I believe you should only take a short trade when you're coming into a trough which is at least 2 cycles longer than the cycle you're trading. We're trading the 40-day cycle. I don't want to take a short trade now. It might turn out to be a profitable trade, but a missed opportunity is better than a losing trade. Okay, so the first and simple answer is no. We're not going to enter a short trade. However, for those of you who want to persist in exploring the options, we first of all need evidence that price has formed this 20-day cycle trough. Once we've got that evidence, okay, and we know that price is moving up to form its second peak in the 40-day cycle, we would stand by to enter a short trade, knowing that on its way down from this peak, which is not yet formed, down to the 40-day cycle trough, at which point we will take our profits. On its way down, it won't move down in a straight line. It will, in fact, take a mid-channel pause when it forms a trough and rises up to the peak of the 10-day cycle. Strictly according to Hurst's trading guidelines, you must wait for that mid-channel pause before entering your short trade. Okay. notice something about taking short trades using Hurst cyclic principles. You get into the market very late. Okay? It is one of the facts about trading using Hurst cyclic principles. Trading long is very different to trading short. Trading long is very easy because you have synchronized troughs. Okay? It's very easy. Trading short is more complicated. There are many fewer trades that are taken. Those of you who have the Trader Edition of Sentient Trader will know that if you're using Hurst's trading methodology and you build a trading history, the ratio of long trades to short trades is usually more than 2 to 1. Okay? You take much fewer short trades, and making money out of short trades is more difficult. It is very possible, and I intend to do it over the coming months, because of course I believe that the markets are heading downwards, and it is very possible to make very good money on the short side using Hurst cyclic principles, but it is a little more complicated. So there we go. It took me almost an hour to tell you that no, we're not going to be entering any trades today in today's Trader Chat. We're instead going to be patient. We're going to wait at the sidelines. I'm breathing a sigh of relief that I did not enter a long trade coming out of the 40-day cycle trough, because we would have been whipsawed to and fro, and it would have been a very nerve-wracking time. So luckily we didn't do that, cautioned by Hurst cyclic principles. And similarly, I am stepping back and not entering a short trade at the moment on the 40-day cycle. All right. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your interest in Sentient Trader. If any of you have any questions, please ask them, or if they're complicated questions, send us an email, and I will answer them by email or at the next Trader Chat. I see a question from Mark. Would the mid-channel pause coincide with an FLD cross? Well, Mark, that is a very interesting question, and the answer to it is fairly long, but I'm going to try and summarize it, and let's see whether we can. Let's show some FLDs here. Okay. So no, unfortunately, I'm not showing enough FLD. Basically, Mark, the answer to your question is that in theory, if it was an ideal market, then yes, the mid-channel pause would coincide perfectly with an FLD cross. The markets, however, are not perfect. So what is going to happen is that the FLD cross will often happen before the mid-channel pause, or after the mid-channel pause, or sometimes right in the mid-channel pause. So you need to be very careful of FLD crosses, because if you're in a mid-channel pause, you need to treat that FLD cross with suspicion, because you need to say, okay, hang on, I'm in a mid-channel pause, and I know that in a mid-channel pause, price is likely to bounce up and down a bit, okay, because that's what it's doing in a mid-channel pause, it's bouncing up and down, in simple terms. And it's likely to cross back and forth over the FLD if that is what happens. Sentient Trader has that built into its thinking, because it's something that I discovered really early on. Okay, Sentient Trader has it built into its thinking, and you will often see in the I don't know whether it's saying this now, but if you have a look at your FLD pattern projection, you will often see that the FLD projection tells you that a particular FLD cross is too late in the cycle for it to be valid, and that's because of it occurring in a mid-channel pause or too late after the mid-channel pause has occurred. Okay, I hope that sort of answers your question. The thing is, trading with Hurst cyclic principles is a matter of trying to keep in mind multiple cycles. It's really important that you don't just focus on one cycle. Most cyclic trading methods focus on one cycle, and they would say, there you go, there's the 40-day cycle, you're trading it. What's really important with Hurst cyclic principles is that you are aware of what the other cycles are doing, and the mid-channel pause is particularly important in terms of that. And I see I've missed a few other things there. Patience is the virtue of the hunter, absolutely. Bart, is the mid-channel pause always occurring after confirmation of a peak? Well, again, Bart, in a perfect world, yes, you would first have confirmation of a peak, and then you would have the mid-channel pause. However, markets are never perfect. It's part of the fun of trading them. They're constantly different and constantly changing. So sometimes a mid-channel pause will occur before you've had confirmation of a peak. As the person looking at the chart, you need to be saying to yourself, has the mid-channel pause occurred yet? And you need to debate those things. As a matter of interest, we're continuing to discuss and follow the markets in Trader Chat. So every 2 weeks you can come along and, as the mid-channel pause forms in the market, I'll be talking about it and we'll be looking at it, and I'll be telling you endless boring stories about peaks relative to mid-channel pauses and so on. But it doesn't, unfortunately, always occur after the confirmation of a peak. In a perfect world it would, but it doesn't. Alain says a mid-channel pause is easy to trade when the underlying trend is flat, absolutely neutral, or at least linear up or down, because the picture is clearer. That's absolutely right, Alain, and it comes back to the shapes of the cycles. The shapes of the cycles form in the market. It's why I'm so obsessed by it, because I realized trading using Hurst cyclic principles that what I was looking at were shapes being etched out on the charts, shapes of the various cycles. And when the underlying trend is flat or neutral, as Alain says, the shapes are often much clearer, and you get something that looks much more like a normal cycle shape. In fact, of course, in Hurst's cycles course, all the diagrams that he drew of a typical cycle are drawn with the assumption that there is no underlying trend, okay, a neutral underlying trend. So the perfect shape of a cycle, and in fact this cycle that we have here is not far from a perfect shape, but you can see the perfect shape of a cycle looks like that. The perfect shape of a cycle, of course, is a perfect M. And if you're trading the mid-channel pause in that particular cycle, then it's much easier. Okay, if you've got a distorted cycle, such as a really bullish or really bearish distorted cycle, it's much harder. Okay, well, thank you very much again for your time and your interest in Sentient Trader, and I hope that I will see some of you tomorrow if you're available for our Oz Trader Chat. It's more of the same sort of thing, talking about Hurst cycles in the markets, and we'll be focusing, of course, on the Australian market because it's targeted at the Australian market.